Tara Grinstead was a 30-year-old high school history teacher and former beauty queen living in the small town of Ocilla, Georgia. She taught 11th grade history at Irwin County High School and was known for her vibrant personality and dedication to her students. During her college years, Tara had been active in pageants, and she won a local Miss Tifton title and even competed for Miss Georgia, using scholarship winnings to help pay for school. By 2005, she was a beloved figure in Ocilla's community and served as a mentor for young women on a similar life path that she had taken. Unfortunately, this beloved local teacher's life was about to be cut tragically short. On Saturday, October 22nd, 2005, Tara spent the day involved in the beauty pageant world she loved. She helped a friend prepare contestants for the local Miss Sweet Potato pageant and attended the event that evening as a coach and supporter. After the pageant, she visited a friend's house and then went to a neighbor's cookout, socializing into the night. Witnesses later recalled that around 11 p.m., Tara was walked to her car by a friend after the cookout, and she then headed home to her nearby house by herself. That weekend, Tara failed to return phone calls, and an acquaintance, a local police captain, reportedly tried to reach her multiple times on Sunday without success. However, it wasn't until Monday that her friends and family realized that something had gone terribly wrong. On the morning of Monday, October 24th, Tara did not show up for work at the high school, and her unexplained absence immediately alarmed her co-workers. Concerned colleagues contacted the authorities to do a welfare check at her home. Police arrived at Tara Grinstead's residence later that day and found an eerie scene. Her car was parked in the driveway, and inside the house they discovered Tara's cell phone and an unlocked door, but there was no sign of Tara herself. Oddly, her purse and keys were missing, suggesting she had left the house with those personal items and had not returned. Investigators noted there were no obvious signs of forced entry into the home, and no indications of a struggle such as broken furniture or blood evidence. The scene was essentially undisturbed, apart from the mystery of Tara's disappearance. Given these suspicious circumstances, local police immediately called upon the Georgia Bureau of Investigation to take the lead. As the GBI took charge, a massive search effort unfolded in Ocilla and the surrounding areas. Law enforcement and volunteers from the community mobilized quickly. They canvassed neighborhoods, distributed flyers, put up billboards, and organized ground searches in hopes of finding any trace of Tara. Despite these efforts, days and then weeks passed with no significant leads. Early on, investigators did recover one potentially crucial piece of evidence just outside Tara's home: a latex glove lying in her yard. Forensic testing revealed the glove bore DNA from an unknown male, raising the strong possibility that Tara had encountered someone the night she went missing. However, this clue led to frustration rather than a quick solution, as the DNA didn't match any of the dozens of men investigators tested. The glove's origin remained a mystery, suggesting the presence of an unidentified man at Tara's house, but giving no further leads to pursue. With physical evidence scarce, the early investigation had to explore every conceivable angle. Detectives conducted interviews with people in Tara's life and checked her phone records and computer for hints. In the absence of quick answers, numerous theories and suspects were scrutinized during those early years. One focus of suspicion was Tara's ex-boyfriend, Marcus Harper, a former Ocilla police officer and Army Ranger. Their long relationship had ended not long before Tara disappeared, and some wondered if a jealous rage or dispute might explain her fate. Harper was thoroughly investigated by authorities and was fully cooperative throughout. He voluntarily provided DNA samples, allowed searches of his vehicle, and fully accounted for his whereabouts on the night in question. His alibi checked out, and his DNA didn't match the glove, leading police to conclude Harper wasn't involved. Another individual examined was Anthony Vickers, a former student of Tara's. Earlier in 2005, Vickers had caused a disturbance outside Tara's home, an incident that resulted in his arrest for disorderly conduct. Given that prior incident, investigators interviewed him regarding the disappearance, but they found no evidence tying Vickers to it and didn't consider him a suspect in Tara's case. With those close to Tara seemingly cleared, some theories speculated that she might have fallen victim to a stranger abduction or a crime of opportunity. After over a decade of frustration, a major break in the case finally arrived in 2017. The catalyst was an unexpected tip, preceded by a resurgence of public interest. In 2016, a podcast called Up and Vanished devoted its first season to Tara's disappearance, bringing new attention to the long-dormant mystery. Not long after the podcast aired, a young woman came forward to the GBI with crucial information. This woman, Brooke Sheridan, was the girlfriend of Bo Dukes, a former friend and classmate of a man named Ryan Duke. Both men had been students at Irwin County High when Tara taught there years before. She told investigators that, after the increased publicity on the case brought on by the podcast, Bo Dukes had confessed to her that he knew what happened to Tara. Acting on this tip, authorities re-interviewed those involved and soon made a stunning announcement. On February 23, 2017, they arrested Ryan Duke and charged him with the slaying of Tara Grinstead. Days later, Bo Dukes was also arrested, accused of helping conceal the crime and tampering with evidence. According to GBI investigators, Ryan Duke, who was 21 at the time of the crime, had allegedly broken into Tara's house in the late hours of October 22, 2005. They believe Tara caught him in the act, leading Duke to fatally attack her. After slaying her, Duke reportedly removed her body from the home. It was then, investigators say, that he enlisted the help of his friend Bo Dukes to dispose of the remains. Dukes, whose family owned a large farm in a neighboring county, later admitted that he assisted Ryan in hiding Tara's body. The two men allegedly took Tara's remains to a remote corner of the Dukes family orchard and burned them to destroy evidence of the crime. This chilling revelation explained why exhaustive searches had never found Tara's body. Investigators even conducted a multi-day excavation of the orchard land in 2017 after the arrests, but they turned up no identifiable remains. The arrests of Ryan Duke and Bo Dukes, nearly 12 years after Tara Grinstead vanished, marked an extraordinary breakthrough. At long last, law enforcement announced that the mystery of Tara's disappearance had been solved, pending final confirmation in court. Now, with both suspects in custody, the focus turned to the legal system to deliver justice for Tara, and you're never going to believe what happened next. In the years following the 2017 arrests, the cases against the two men moved through the courts separately. Bo Dukes was the first to face trial. In March 2019, a jury convicted Dukes on charges related to covering up Tara's death. He was sentenced to the maximum of 25 years in prison for these offenses. Disturbingly, it was also revealed that he was a serial predator, committing multiple essay offenses against women in the intervening years. Ryan Duke, the alleged perpetrator himself, went to trial 3 years later in May 2022. The courtroom proceedings were dramatic. Although Ryan had initially confessed to the GBI, he recanted that confession and claimed it was actually Bo Dukes who was responsible. He now asserted that he had only helped destroy the evidence of the crime out of fear of Dukes. After a closely watched trial nearly 17 years after the crime, the jury delivered a split verdict. Ryan Duke was acquitted of Tara's slaying, as well as related charges of burglary and aggravated assault. This means the jury wasn't convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that he was the one who had ended her. However, the jury did find him guilty of the charge of concealing a death, reflecting his admitted involvement in the cover-up. A judge subsequently sentenced Ryan Duke to 10 years in prison for concealing Tara's death, the maximum penalty for that crime. Rico Harris was a 37-year-old former basketball prospect who once played for the Harlem Globetrotters. He disappeared in October 2014 during a solo drive from his mother's home in Southern California en route to Seattle. A few days after he left, Harris's black Nissan Maxima was found abandoned at a park in rural Yolo County, north of Sacramento, with no sign of Harris himself. Despite an intensive search of the surrounding wilderness by authorities, not a single trace of the 6'9", 300-pound athlete was found. Rico grew up in Los Angeles County and showed early promise as a basketball player. In his late teens, he blossomed into a high school standout, becoming one of the nation's top 100 recruits, courted by elite college programs like Connecticut, Kentucky, and UCLA. Unfortunately, Harris's path through college was tumultuous. He first enrolled at Arizona State University, but left after a freshman year arrest and academic issues. Harris then dominated at Los Angeles City College, leading the team to a state junior college championship in 1997. However, an attempt to transfer to a Division I program fell through due to a poor academic record. He finished his college career at Cal State Northridge, but his time there was marked by suspensions and conflicts with his coach. By 1999, perhaps unsurprisingly, the once promising player went undrafted in the NBA. Harris continued to pursue professional basketball on the fringe. In 2000, Rico joined the world-famous Harlem Globetrotters in hopes that this would raise his profile and he could move to a more legitimate basketball team. For those who aren't aware, the Globetrotters are a sports entertainment team, rather than a competitive basketball team. His tenure with the Globetrotters lasted only a couple of months. He later said he left due to a combination of a nagging back injury and a serious concussion from being hit in the head with a baseball bat while trying to break up a fight. With that, Harris's basketball ambitions were effectively cut short, aside from a few attempts to play in a short-lived semi-pro league called the International Basketball League. Life after basketball proved challenging, and Harris fell into substance abuse, with alcohol being his most major issue. He would struggle off and on, but by 2007 he committed to sobriety and pieced his life back together, finding steady work in private security in Los Angeles. In 2012, while working as a security manager at a nightclub, Harris met Jennifer Song, an insurance broker from Seattle who was visiting California. The two began a long-distance relationship. For over 2 years, they maintained their bond through phone calls, text messages, and weekend visits. By 2014, Harris was looking toward the future with newfound optimism. He was nearing 7 years of sobriety and decided to relocate to Seattle to live with Jennifer permanently. He gradually moved his belongings into her Seattle townhouse and also secured a promising job interview in the area. This transition was not without difficulty, and Harris initially felt homesick and under pressure, and in late July 2014, he briefly relapsed into his old drinking habits. By early October 2014, Harris was still committed to his move and his new life in Seattle, or at least that's what he wanted people to believe outwardly. In the first week of October 2014, Rico Harris decided to make an impromptu trip from Seattle down to Alhambra in California to visit his family before fully settling in Seattle. According to Jennifer, he felt he needed to talk with his mother and brother, possibly to find closure with some past issues and to reassure his family about his new path. On October 8, 2014, Harris told Jennifer he was going out to explore Seattle while she went to the gym. Instead, he secretly began the 1,000-mile drive south to see his family. He drove through the night and arrived at his mother Margaret Fernandez's home in Alhambra around 2 o'clock in the morning on October 9th. Margaret was surprised and concerned by her son's sudden visit, and she later said she suspected he had been drinking when he showed up. Shortly after midnight, in the early hours of October 10th, 2014, Rico Harris quietly slipped out of his mother's house and began the long drive back to Seattle. At about 1 a.m., he phoned his mother, who hadn't even realized he had left. He then called Jennifer to let her know he was already on the road north. Jennifer was startled that he had left without sleeping, and the two spoke by phone for approximately 3 to 4 hours as Harris drove through Central California. Jennifer later said she grew increasingly concerned during that call, and his speech and thoughts were giving her cause for worry. Eventually, sometime before dawn, Jennifer fell asleep while on the phone with him. Around 8 o'clock in the morning on October 10th, Jennifer awoke and called Harris back, and he reported that he was near Sacramento. Not long after, at 10:45 that same morning, Harris left a voicemail for Jennifer saying that he was, quote, going up into the mountains to rest for a while, before continuing the drive. He mentioned that he hadn't slept much and needed to pull over. Approximately 30 minutes later, around 11:15 a.m., his cell phone was switched off, but whether Harris turned it off or the battery died is not clear. This was the last anyone ever heard from him, though panic didn't immediately set in. By October 13th, however, Harris had missed his important job interview in Seattle and still hadn't contacted anyone. That same day, far to the north in Yolo County, California, a sheriff's deputy was making a routine patrol through a secluded rest area known as Cache Creek Regional Park. The deputy noticed a black Nissan Maxima parked off to the side of the lot. It had been there the day before as well, which struck him as odd. On October 13th, after seeing the car again untouched, the deputy ran the license plates and discovered it was registered to Rico Harris. He contacted the Alhambra Police Department in Los Angeles County to inquire about the owner. Alhambra Police, in turn, went to Margaret Fernandez's house that day to inform her that Rico's car had been found abandoned hundreds of miles away in Northern California. Margaret immediately realized something was very wrong and filed a missing person report for her son on October 13th, 2014, officially launching the investigation into his disappearance. In the days following the car's discovery, a few tantalizing clues emerged. Investigators learned that Harris had stopped for gas in Lodi, California, around 100 miles south of where his car was found, and then apparently deviated from the main interstate. Why he drove into the isolated Cache Creek area remains uncertain. He may have taken a wrong turn or intentionally driven into the hills to rest or sightsee. Several witnesses later reported seeing a large African-American man fitting Harris's description in the vicinity on October 11th and 12th. One passerby recalled a tall man walking along Route 16 in the early morning hours of October 11th. Another motorist believed he saw the same man sitting on a guardrail overlooking Cache Creek around that time. Additionally, a couple reported seeing a giant man wandering around a black car on October 12th, appearing disoriented. These sightings suggested that Harris was indeed alive and on foot in the area for at least a day or two after he left the highway. Search teams discovered very large shoe prints by the creek near the parking lot, including one set of fresh impressions that matched the size 18 sneakers Harris wore. They noted that the prints went down toward the water and then back up, as if someone had walked to the creek and returned. In the same vicinity, Investigators found an insert from a shoe believed to be from Harris's footwear based upon the size alone. This indicated that Harris had likely been the person who parked the car there and had walked around the area. About 1,500 feet up the road from the parking lot, searchers also recovered Harris's black backpack, abandoned on the roadside. Inside it were jumper cables, some clothing, and 2 plastic bottles, one empty and one partially filled with hard liquor. Crucially, the backpack also contained Harris's cell phone and charger. On October 18th, another sighting of Rico was reported, and the authorities found fresh footprints, again from size 18 shoes. Yet despite these leads, searchers couldn't locate Harris. Sniffer dogs were brought in and signaled interest in a particular spot along the creek, prompting dive teams to search pools of water, but no evidence was found. In the absence of concrete answers, several theories have been put forward to explain what might have happened to Rico Harris. The lead detective on the case eventually came to believe that no foul play was involved, and that Harris may have voluntarily walked away from his life. The investigation found no evidence of struggle or violence at the scene. The car, the phone, and the backpack all appeared to have been left undisturbed by anyone other than Harris himself. The lead detective theorized that Harris might have taken a wrong turn off the highway, and upon finding the serene Cache Creek area, decided to stop and rest. It was noted that he had been under significant pressure. He was moving to a new city, potentially starting a new job, and struggling to maintain sobriety. Further, he was in the process of adjusting to living with his girlfriend. The authorities officially speculated that the weight of those unresolved personal issues and life changes may have led to Harris not returning to Seattle. Interestingly, the lead detective has gone on record saying that he believes that sometime after Rico's car was towed, Rico may have gotten a ride out of the area. A related theory has focused on Harris's psychological state. By all accounts, he was under severe stress. Lack of sleep, the cross-country move, and his recent relapse might have created a perfect storm. It's possible Harris experienced a mental health crisis or emotional breakdown in the hours leading up to his disappearance. If Harris became disoriented or suffered some kind of break, he might have intentionally walked away into a new life or inadvertently placed himself in danger. Some believe that he may have entered into a dissociative fugue and started a new life, either being unaware of his old identity or simply preferring his new life. That said, others have observed that his physical appearance would likely make it harder for him to start fresh, since he literally stands head and shoulders above everyone else. Another possibility is that Rico Harris intended to return to his journey after resting, but fell victim to an accident in the remote wilderness. Harris may have been exhausted and possibly dehydrated, and as suggested by the bottles in his backpack, he had relapsed once again. It's conceivable that while walking around in a fatigued state, he could have slipped and injured himself or gotten lost in the wild. A fall down a ravine or into the fast-moving creek could prove fatal. If he succumbed to exposure or injury, his remains might have been missed in the initial search, especially if they ended up in a concealed spot or were moved by natural elements. From the start, investigators didn't see obvious signs of foul play in Harris's case. There was no blood and no indication of a struggle at the car. Further yet, Harris was, to put it mildly, not an easy target, standing 6'9" and with a powerful build. That said, his friends and family knew him to be a mild-mannered individual who got along with everyone, and suspect that he may have let his guard down around the wrong people. Hey everyone, it's Jimmy here. Just quickly reminding you to hit that like button and share this video with your friends and family. Close your eyes and imagine for a moment that you're a doctor in a field hospital and you've just received a new patient. He's a wounded soldier in extreme agony, but all the supplies of any legitimate painkiller have run out. Desperate to calm him, you inject this wounded soldier with a simple salt solution, assuring the soldier it's actually a potent painkiller. Incredibly, the soldier relaxes as if given real medicine. This famous story, whether fact or legend, illustrates a phenomenon known as the placebo effect, the power of a mere belief or expectation to bring about real relief. Long before scientists studied it, traditional healers of all kinds noticed that faith in a treatment can sometimes heal. As far back as the 16th century, a French physician observed that some people feel better just by the very act of treatment, a phenomenon which would come to be known as the placebo effect. One of the first scientific demonstrations of the placebo effect came in 1799. An English physician named John Haygarth tested a popular quack device of the time called Perkins's metallic tractors, metal rods said to draw out disease. Haygarth suspected the benefit was all in the patient's imagination. He conducted a clever experiment. He treated patients in pain with the expensive metal rods, and others with wooden decoy rods painted to look the same. The patients didn't know which was which, or that they were subject to an experiment, but they did believe that the metallic tractors worked. Remarkably, 4 out of 5 patients reported pain relief with the fake rods, just as often as with the supposed legitimate rods. Haygarth, rather than simply disproving one device, concluded that belief was the true healer. He wrote about this imaginary cure in a publication, planting the seed for the concept of the placebo effect, though he didn't use that term yet. The term placebo in a medical sense gradually entered the lexicon in the 19th and early 20th centuries to mean a non-medically active treatment given for comfort. It wasn't until a 1920 article in The Lancet that the phrase placebo effect was formally introduced as we use it today. But it was Henry K. Beecher, an American anesthesiologist, who truly popularized the concept. In the post-war era, Beecher had seen with his own eyes that belief could act as medicine. Inspired by this, Beecher analyzed many clinical cases and in 1955 published a landmark paper titled The Powerful Placebo. He famously estimated that around 35% of patients in trials improved from just a dummy treatment. This revelation was a wake-up call. It showed how strongly the mind could influence the body. Following Beecher's work, the placebo-controlled trial became the gold standard for medical research. In a typical trial, one group of patients gets the real pill and another group gets a placebo without anyone knowing who got which until the end. This is called the double-blind process, since neither the researchers nor the participants know which is which. If the real treatment doesn't beat the placebo, it's not considered effective. This method revolutionized medicine by ensuring new treatments had to do better than the mind's own healing ability. Yet it also underscored a fascinating reality. Just believing you are being treated can often help. Unraveling the placebo effect mystery has proven extremely challenging. At first glance, it seems almost magical that a sugar pill or a fake procedure could trigger real changes. The exact cause remains a mystery, but there are a number of theories about why it may be the case that the placebo effect actually works. The most common explanation is that if you expect a treatment to help, that expectation alone can launch a healing response. In other words, hope and belief release real forces in the body. For example, when a person believes they've taken a painkiller, their brain can actually release natural pain-relieving chemicals. Studies show that placebo pain relief is associated with the brain pumping out endorphins and activating dopamine, a neurotransmitter linked to reward. The placebo effect can also behave like a Pavlovian response in humans. Over time, we learn to associate the ritual of treatment with getting better. Our bodies can be trained to respond. In one famous example, patients repeatedly given a substance that increases heart rate might later show the same heart rate jump when given just a look-alike placebo pill. In essence, the body has learned the cue and has learned what response is expected. In short, some theorize our physiology can unconsciously remember and replicate the effects of real treatments when given a symbolic substitute. The placebo effect also reveals how tightly the mind and body are woven together. Modern brain imaging studies have captured this in action. When a person experiences placebo pain relief, scans often show increased activity in brain regions that dampen pain signals and process emotions. Interestingly, a 2024 brain scan study of pain in mice found that a placebo didn't shut off the raw pain messages traveling from nerves to the brain. Instead, it changed how the brain interpreted those signals. At present, it's unclear if the same principle applies to human brains as well. Whatever the cause of the placebo effect, the one thing that is clear is that it's a very real scientific mystery that we may solve one day soon. Tammy Pitkin was a 54-year-old real estate agent from Red Bluff, California, who vanished under mysterious circumstances in October 2022. On October 14th of that year, Tammy set off on a short road trip with her 2 dogs, telling her family she would be back in just a few days. She had recently separated from her husband, but was reportedly looking forward to positive life events on the horizon, including the upcoming birth of her first grandchild. In the days immediately after leaving home, Tammy's movements were partly traced through receipts and sightings. On October 15th, 2022, she was seen making a purchase at a convenience store in Glendale, Oregon. By October 16th, records show she had made a reservation at a Best Western hotel in Sutherland, Oregon. The last known indication of Tammy's whereabouts was in the Sutherland area on October 17th, after which there were no further signs of her. Finally, on October 26th, Tammy was officially reported missing to the authorities. 3 days after the missing person report, a crucial break in the case emerged, but it only raised more questions. On October 29th, a hunter in Lynn County, Oregon, discovered Tammy's gray Toyota Camry, abandoned on a remote logging road off Highway 20 near the town of Sweet Home. The car bore California plates and appeared to have been sitting in that spot for many days. In fact, it was found in an area that had received snowfall about a week earlier, and investigators noted the snow around the vehicle had no recent tire tracks or disturbances. This suggested the car had been there, untouched, since at least a week prior. This timing was crucial, as it roughly aligns with the last day Tammy was known to be traveling. Based on the fuel level in the tank and the condition of the dirt and snow, the authorities believe the car was likely parked on that dead-end road on the 17th and left there ever since. When police examined the abandoned Camry, they found many of Tammy's personal belongings inside. Her purse, identification, passport, and medication were all in the car, as were leashes for her dogs. Other items left behind included an overnight bag with toiletries, a weapon she carried for personal protection, and 2 boxes filled with clothes and shoes. Notably, these important items had been left behind as if Tammy had expected to return to the vehicle. Conspicuously missing, however, were Tammy herself and her dogs. There were no obvious signs of a struggle or foul play at the scene. The car was simply found locked and quietly sitting at the end of the isolated road. Search and rescue teams, including canine units, scoured the dense forested area around where the car was found, but turned up no trace of Tammy or her missing dogs. In a strange twist, one of Tammy's two dogs reappeared months later. A small white dog named Trooper was spotted running along Highway 20 in the vicinity of the car's location over 3 months after the disappearance. Trooper was rescued in early 2023 by a local couple, and though emaciated from surviving in the wild, the dog was alive and well. This discovery gave a glimmer of hope, but also deepened the mystery. If Trooper survived in the woods for months, what might have happened to Tammy and her other dog? Despite extensive ground searches in the area and ongoing efforts, no physical evidence of Tammy or the other pet has ever been found. Investigators confirmed that Tammy had no known connections to Lynn County that might explain her presence there. The official response to Tammy Pitkin's disappearance involved multiple law enforcement agencies across state lines. Initially, the Lynn County Sheriff's Office in Oregon led the search around the site of the abandoned car. However, at some point, the primary investigative responsibility went to the authorities in Tehama County in California, where she was from. From early on, law enforcement didn't find evidence pointing to a crime. In fact, investigators in Lynn County have indicated they don't suspect foul play in Tammy's disappearance. In the absence of clear signs of abduction or violence, one prevailing theory among officials has been that Tammy left the car on her own and perhaps became lost or injured in the wilderness. Tammy's half-sister, Erica Laughlin Bento, has been a prominent voice in the case and has offered additional insight into Tammy's state of mind before she went missing. According to her, Tammy had been under significant stress and was not mentally well leading up to the trip. The family believes she might have been effectively running away from her life for a brief time to clear her head, or possibly fleeing in panic. In interviews, Erica speculated that Tammy may have felt afraid or paranoid during her journey. For example, she might have thought she was being followed by someone, which could have caused her to drive onto an out-of-the-way forest road to evade whoever she feared. This line of thinking suggests that Tammy's own mindset could have played a major role. She possibly left the vehicle by choice, either to hide or to get away from a perceived threat, and then something went wrong. While authorities have been cautious in their statements, online communities and amateur sleuths have proposed a range of theories to explain Tammy Pitkin's baffling vanishing. The most popular theory echoes the one just discussed, that Tammy may have intended to disappear for a while due to personal pressures, but something went wrong. Supporters of this theory point to several pieces of information that suggest a planned getaway. For example, on October 15th, Tammy may have withdrew approximately $1,000 in cash from a bank account and also purchased a prepaid phone card. These actions haven't been confirmed in official accounts, but if true, they're speculated to be evidence that she intended to live off the grid. This theory is bolstered by confirmed evidence such as her taking 2 boxes full of clothing with her. Another widely discussed possibility is that Tammy became the victim of an accident after leaving her vehicle. For instance, one scenario often mentioned is that she might have let her dogs out of the car for a bathroom break in the wilderness, and that something went awry at that moment. If one dog ran off into the trees, Tammy could have chased after it and gotten lost, injured, like falling down steep terrain, or otherwise incapacitated where no one could find her. This theory is partly supported by the later recovery of Trooper alive in the area. It's conceivable that in trying to retrieve a runaway pet, Tammy ventured too far from the road and couldn't make it back. The forests of Lynn County are remote and rugged, with steep slopes and thick vegetation, so an individual without proper gear or who is disoriented could quickly get into trouble. Sadly, if Tammy was injured or lost in that environment, it's possible she succumbed to exposure or other dangers, and her remains simply haven't been found yet. Despite the leanings of law enforcement toward no foul play, Some observers cannot shake the feeling that something more sinister might have happened. Some online commenters have focused on Tammy's personal life and the timing of her disappearance, raising questions about whether someone close to her could have been involved. Notably, Tammy's trip came about a month after she filed for divorce from her husband of many years. All that said, it's very important to stress that no evidence whatsoever implicates anyone close to Tammy in any wrongdoing. Others speculate that Tammy could have fallen victim to a stranger. Under this theory, Tammy might have crossed paths with the wrong person at some point between October 15th and 17th. Perhaps she picked up a hitchhiker or met someone at a gas station or motel who gained her trust. This theory remains entirely speculative, however, and the authorities explicitly don't believe this is the case. Others have speculated that she went to the woods to exit the stage on her own terms. This is supported by circumstantial evidence to indicate that she wasn't doing well mentally at the time of her disappearance. That said, many have questioned why she would have brought her dogs with her if this was the plan all along. Also, even though she wasn't doing well, she appears to have been excited to meet her first grandchild, again putting doubt on this theory. In the summer of 1764, the quiet hills of Gévaudan in southern France became the hunting grounds of a mysterious predator. When 14-year-old Jeanne Boulet was found brutally mauled in late June, her slaying was recognized as the first attack of what would soon be called the Beast of Gévaudan. This creature would terrorize the region for the next 3 years. By the time the beast's reign ended in 1767, it had attacked well over 100 people, with the majority of its victims suffering brutal fates. After Jeanne Boulet's death in 1764, more horrific attacks quickly followed. Villagers across the Gévaudan region began encountering the same nightmare, a huge wolf-like creature springing from the forests to attack people working in the fields or tending livestock. The victims were often women and little ones, who were more vulnerable while out in the pastures. Survivors described a beast with shaggy reddish fur and a black stripe down its back, larger than any ordinary wolf. Many victims were found with their throats torn out or even worse, fueling rumors that a monster, not just a normal wolf, was on the loose. Fear gripped the countryside and parents kept their children close, and farmers started routinely carrying weapons to the fields. Local leaders organized hunting parties, but the beast proved cunning and elusive. In one remarkable incident in January 1765, a group of village children led by a boy named Jacques Portefeuille managed to fight off the creature by sticking together. Their bravery caught the attention of King Louis XV, who promptly dispatched royal hunters to the region to help put an end to the terror. In 1765, professional wolf hunters were dispatched to Gévaudan under the king's orders. Initially, an experienced father and son wolf hunting team combed the countryside, but after they failed, the king's own hunt master, François Antoine, was sent to take charge of the affair. In September 1765, Antoine eliminated an enormous wolf believed to be the beast. The carcass was sent to Versailles as proof, and Antoine was hailed as a hero. At first, it seemed the nightmare was over, but only for a short time. A few months later, new attacks were reported. In December 1765 and into 1766, people in Gévaudan once again fell victim to a ferocious attacker with the same bloody methods. It became clear that either the original beast had survived or there was another one still at large. By now, the royal court had lost interest, assuming the problem was solved, so the local people were left to fend for themselves. A local nobleman, the Marquis d'Apcher, continued to organize hunts with the assistance of determined villagers. Finally, during a hunt in June 1767, a farmer and hunter named Jean Chastel shot a large wolf-like animal. This marked the end of the beast's reign of terror, and after Chastel's bullet found its mark, the attack stopped for good. According to popular accounts, the creature's body was opened and found to contain human remains, grim evidence that the right animal had been slain. In the end, perhaps around 100 people fell to the claws and teeth of the demon wolf in the 3-year rampage, making the beast of Gévaudan one of history's deadliest animals. Even after the beast of Gévaudan was slain, the question remained: what kind of creature had it been? At the time, many locals believed it was no ordinary wolf. Some even thought a supernatural evil was at work. Eyewitness descriptions varied wildly. Some said it looked like a gigantic wolf, while others noted strange features that didn't match any known animal. Or perhaps I should say they didn't match any known local animal. These conflicting accounts only fueled more speculation, both back then and in the years since. A very plausible theory is that the animal was, in fact, a wolf or wolves. In 18th century France, wolf attacks on people, though not common, did happen, and Gévaudan was a remote region filled to the brim with wolves. The way victims were attacked, with their throats torn out, is consistent with wolf predation, and indeed several large wolves were slain during the hunt for the beast. Some even speculated the beast was a wolf-dog hybrid, bred for exceptional size and ferocity, but this is essentially a variation on the wolf theory. It's also quite possible that more than one wolf was involved over the years. Today, most mainstream historians consider an unusually aggressive and large wolf to be the most likely explanation for the beast of Gévaudan. Another theory blames an escaped exotic animal, such as a lion or a hyena, for the attacks. The descriptions of the beast's appearance and its sheer ferocity could fit these creatures, and such creatures were occasionally kept in France at the time. A subadult male lion, for instance, might not have a full mane, and could match key details of the reports, such as the tawny color, the tufted tail, and the strength to carry off victims. Likewise, a hyena with its striped back and powerful build might explain the monster seen by witnesses. It's conceivable that a lion or hyena could have escaped from a private menagerie or traveling circus and prowled the countryside. However, there's no record of any such creature disappearing at this time, so this idea, while intriguing, remains speculative. More bizarre theories suggest human or supernatural causes. One notion was that a deranged individual used a trained animal, like a large mastiff dog decked out in full armor, to carry out the attacks. However, no evidence has ever been brought forth to indicate that any such person existed. Others truly believed the creature was a cursed being or a werewolf. Since it was never conclusively identified, the beast of Gévaudan remains a legend, as well as a frightening historical reality. People still debate whether it was a wolf, a hybrid, or something more exotic, or perhaps disturbing, but the truth is that no one will ever be able to say the truth with certainty.